Hey guys, it's your girl Dr. J with my mental health and wellness tip from my perspective. So listen, I want to talk about what might be a very sensitive subject and one that has an emotional impact on an individual from childhood to adulthood. Let's talk about the illegitimate child, also known as the bastard child. Yeah, let's talk about the illegitimate child, aka also known as the bastard child. So I want to start by giving a definition of a bastard child. And so, according to Webster and Psych Info, a bastard child is usually an offensive term to identify a child or children who are born to parents who have not married. And so, being called or identified as illegitimate or bastard child at one point, I read that it was kind of like a neutral term, and then things shifted to fit society norm of what the norm says that you should be married before you have children. And we know a lot of norms that we don't necessarily follow, but those are the norms that's supposed to set or fit things as appropriate in society. So this whole thing about the illegitimate or the bastard child being born to a mother that's not married. And so here we are again in the 20th century, and people are having children, outside of marriages. And we could even take it back to slavery when the master, went in and, raped the mothers and they bore children, to them. And so it had a very negative connotation. And so I'm hearing, as we come back around, that term come up and that negative stigma of being an illegitimate child or a bastard child, having a major psychological effect on people. And the other thing I've thought about is that, I read where people who were not married and they say they had a love child. And so there's a whole lot of controversy. Like, it still does not change the fact if that child was born out of wedlock, then that child is still considered an illegitimate or a bastard child. Here's why this subject has come up. So I'm seeing a client, and the client is struggling with some issues from childhood experiences. And so he was talking about how he was identified as a bastard child. And he said that when his mom would be disciplining him verbally, or when he was experiencing emotional abuse from his mom, that she would often call him a bastard. Actually, he said that I was called a bastard so many times until I actually thought that my middle name was Bastard. And so he and I are working on, trying to deconstruct the emotional grip that it has on him, because in fact, he's coming of age and he's concerned about having children, and it's far from his mind as far as dating somebody and possibly having a child outside of marriage because of the stigma of being called an illegitimate child or a bastard child is having on his emotions. So the question I have for you is, being called an illegitimate child or a bastard child, is it blocking you from reaching your highest potential, or does that have you in a stuck place? Is there any psychological ramification or emotional setback that you are experiencing because perhaps you were born like I was born, or how Oprah was born, or how Jay-Z was born, to a single mom, what they want to identify as an illegitimate or a bastard child? So I want to share a little bit of information that I got from Science Direct and this other website that's called Psych Variety. And so it wrote that the psychological effects of being an illegitimate child is that the individual grows up with low self-esteem, that they have trust issues, They have identity problems, and ultimately they have problems establishing and maintaining relationship. And I'd like to think of that as a myth. While all of us may have experienced something and may have been born to a single mom, there's a whole lot of us who have actually put the work in, and we're not suffering from low self-esteem. And we're clear on who we are, and we're clear about our family ties. A lot of times, no, we cannot help the family that we're born into, but we can help how we allow the family that we were born into to have a major impact on our lives as we begin to mature. And not only that, I think that we have a right and a call as parents, even if you are a single parent, to protect your child's emotion. And so that when people are throwing these terms around, illegitimate child or bastard child, then that is your role to let your child know how much they are loved and how they do belong. So I want to leave you with a couple of takeaways. And the first one is that we are not damaged goods. We have resilience. We may have experienced some things, but life have a way of showing us that we can work through those things and stand up in the face of opposition. So I want to say to you that if you are struggling with some type of childhood emotion, or you have not been able to get over the fact that even if your parents were married and they broke up, or if your parents were married and one of them stepped outside of the marriage and had children with someone else, put the work in. You are only responsible for the healing and the wholeness that you need to move on to your life. So once again, we may have all been born in different forms, some in marriages, some outside of marriages, but that does not dominate our lives and what we might turn out to be. As you can see on the left, for me, looking at myself, looking at Oprah, looking at Jay-Z, however, I don't have their money, but I will say that I'm okay. I'm comfortable. I am not damaged from anything that I experienced from my childhood. I'm not damaged from the fact that my mom was a single mom and I was born out of wedlock, or quoting what they might call an illegitimate child or a bastard child. So I say the same thing to you. Do not allow that opposition or anything to get in the way of you moving in the way of life that is successful for you. And remember, we are all God's creation and we are good. From your girl, Dr. J.